I thank the gentleman. Claiming my own time, I would like to ask Lieutenant General Hodges. I've not been back to Ukraine for several years, especially with this pandemic, but previously I had been there after the massacre at the Maidan, been there several times before the annexation of an invasion of Crimea. And it was a challenge to get a sense of the readiness and willingness of Ukraine to defend itself. Previously, before the Crimea annexation, we did see there was a draft that was instituted for males, I think, from 18 to 35. It was not as coherent as you might like. I've also had an opportunity to visit a number of our bases, in Germany, in Landstuhl, and got the flavor of the acceptance of U.S. forces in Europe. Could you, and obviously we've heard reports of NATO and U.S. troop movements into places like Poland and Romania. So this is not classified information we're talking about here. Could you give me a sense of your perspective on U.S. NATO readiness in that region, and especially focus on the NATO cohesiveness, which seems much improved right now. However, we all know how that can sometimes dissolve in the face of military kinetic action. So just like to get your assessment of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me touch, I think, three different points. First, as to Ukrainian armed forces, you're exactly right. This is not the same Ukrainian armed force of 2014 because of their own effort and because of the support from the United States over the last 8 years, as well as some other allies in a variety of ways. They have significantly improved capability. And maybe most importantly, the willingness to fight, not just soldiers, but also amongst the population. I think we're seeing this a lot these days. Clearly, the Russians will have a significant overmatch in terms of sea power and air power. But when it comes to ground forces, one of the reasons we are not going to see a massive Russian land assault is because they will suffer incredible casualties and would not be likely to reach Kyiv, let alone encircle it or destroy it. So I think on the ground, it's a much better force, but certainly there is much more to do, particularly in terms of anti-ship capability, air defense capability, where we can help. Ukrainian soldiers impressed me with how quickly they learned technology. Several years ago, our government gave them what we call Q-36 counterfire radar, put it in the hands of Ukrainian soldiers. That radar is much better than I ever knew it was. Of course, I had never been under Russian artillery fire or rocket fire. Now, that's a powerful motivator for innovation. And that radar has been a very, very useful piece of equipment for them as an example. For our own forces, of course, there's no commander is going to say he has enough, but we are really, really light in terms of naval or sea power ourselves. I mean, basically, there are 4 U.S. Navy ships assigned to U.S. Navy Europe. That's it. And those are the same vessels that are in the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, Arctic, North Atlantic, all around this theater. So there is a shortage of naval capability to address all the requirements, and our great Navy is typically overstretched. Land forces, we're in a pretty decent place. I'm absolutely happy with the deployment that the president directed of troops coming from Fort Bragg and Fort Campbell, as well as from Germany to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. I think I used to be against this, but I've changed my mind. I think it is time to reconsider permanent basing along NATO's eastern flank in Poland, in Romania, in Baltic countries. I think Secretary General Stoltenberg, and there's not a statue big enough for that guy. He has done so much to hold our alliance together, has begun to talk about maybe we should reconsider the idea of permanent basing along NATO's eastern flank. Mr. Chairman, if I may, one last thing. The best thing that we can do to deter Russia and to protect our country is to live up to our own talking points. I live in Germany. I'm from the great state of Florida, but I've lived here now for the last several years since retiring, and it is hard to watch. And all of my European friends shake their head when they talk about January the 6th. They can't believe what they see and hear. And I'm not talking about just in Germany. I'm talking about the full range of European countries, and it undermines our desire to project American power when we look so divided. And I mean, it's not who they all grew up respecting, and it really. So I commend this committee for trying to address this, the work that you're dealing with, that you're trying to do. But we are so vulnerable right now to everything that the Kremlin wants to do. We're an easy target, to be very candid.
Well, thank you very much, General. Those were poignant and really important remarks, especially with respect to the way Europe and the world views us after January 6th. We are our strongest when we are together, and we need to get to that place. And I know we've got some distance to cover in that regard. That was a very dark day, but I do appreciate your assessment, and I hope you're right with respect to the readiness of the Ukrainian people. So I want to thank all of our witnesses. You've been terrific. I want to thank our members for your thoughtful and insightful questions. I really do appreciate the work you've put into this, and I think it revealed a lot during the hearing. In closing, I want to thank our witnesses for their remarks today. I want to commend my colleagues again for your participation in this important conversation. And with that, and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit additional written questions for the witnesses to the chair, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. And I ask our witnesses, if you receive questions in that regard, please try to respond as promptly as you are able so that we can close the record. This hearing is now adjourned. I thank you all, and please be safe, and thanks for your participation. And thanks for your service to your country, both past and ongoing.